This is Alliance War Season 61. A new season begins with new tactics and new rivals. Champions will rise. The battleground evolves with every step. Who will adapt? Who will survive? Every battle counts. Every win matters. This is Alliance War. Welcome back in, champions. Here we are. It is the second half of the war season. 6 wars left. This war up, we are going to be once again on path for. We're taking 10 fights total this war, one of which I really didn't plan on and kind of just did some cleanup work on, but I'm counting it as a fight anyway. First fight up here is going to be this Peni Parker. You saw that I did go into rupture mode there. I'm just going to fight this like it's any other champion and not really Peni Parker. I'm not going to worry about the auto block too much. If I take a little bit of chip damage, great. If I end up needing to hit into her shield, fine. You know, you can see there she did auto block part of the special. Really didn't do much damage to me. As long as she doesn't throw that special one, I am not terribly concerned about the auto block, and I'm only doing 3 hit combos. So the chance of taking a lot of damage from her auto block outside the specials really isn't too bad. You know, you can see I am taking a little bit. I've got, you know, most of that is coming from the petrifies that are on me. And if I would ever turn off willpower on this node, I think it would be okay. There I take a little bit of damage just because I can't dex back, but that Penny's down. Not bad. 40 seconds for a fight that I thought was going to be very, very slow. Next fight up is Adam Warlock. I've got Wiccan on the team for a Knull coming up here in a little bit, so I figured, you know, what the heck, instead of fighting class disadvantage, let's go ahead and go in here with Wiccan. I should be able to do this fight and stay fairly healthy. I'm not too terribly concerned about it there. You know, we're going to build up some of our spells. You know, I just felt like doing a parry heavy right there at the beginning. I had the chance. I said, why not? Let's take it. And you can see now I'm going ahead and just trying to apply all the spells. I've got all the spells up, which is kind of nice. You know, don't really need it for this fight, but I figured, what the heck, we might as well go ahead and, while we had a chance to do it. There, I thought I got a parry. I forgot about his stupid stuff that Adam Warlock does, and I couldn't get a parry in there. So you know what? I decided, the heck with having those spells up, I'm just going to go ahead and do a typical fight. You know, I'm just going to fight Adam Warlock. I'm going to bait his special ones. Here, I've got to start watching out for, you know, the stasis pod that's coming up. And, you know, just kind of slows things down. He gets a little bit of a heal. You know, not the end of the world. It just, you know, and then I've got the glancing on now from the node. Once again, not the biggest deal. I'm just going to, like I said, bait special ones. I'm going to throw whatever special comes up on me. Here's a special 2. We get some degen on there. We get some nice damage, and we take out that Adam Warlock, and we stay at a full yellow bar. Jumping up into section 2, we've got this future Ant-Man there. I could have very easily just used Ironheart for this fight. It's a slower fight, but Ironheart can do it. But I wanted to try Karolina. I've not used Karolina in war very often, if at all. I can't remember at this point if I'd used her before or not. So we're going to try her here on this node. She's not the greatest future Ant-Man counter, but once again, every once in a while, we just have to have a little bit of fun, especially when it's fun in the sun. So, you know, here we're going to just take that in the block. Now we're going to throw our first of our special 2s. Does some decent damage there. I was kind of impressed with how much damage that she did, you know, do on that fight there. I tried to counter and was a little slow, so I, you know, take a couple hits in the face there. You know, part of what I'm trying to do here is not get too far away from the sun. I want to stay in the sun as much as possible. It just helps, you know, Karolina out. Now we're going to throw another unblockable special 2. Does some decent damage. Fortunately, the sun came right back on us, and then we can just do, you know, 1 hit into a heavy, you know, and then we're going to back away again. Really, at this point, I'm hoping that another special 2 will kill. We're going to just take all that and let it glance, and, you know, not worry about it. There, we're in the sun, so we can throw that as a unblockable attack. He's down to 17%. You know, here, kind of got lucky that that was still in the sun when I did that. And then we throw another unblockable special 2, and we take care of future Ant-Man. Took a couple hits, took a little chip damage, healed it up because of the node, and we're moving on. Now this is a fight you've seen a couple times before, and well, I think this time may be my fastest that I've done. I'm being safe here. I'm throwing on an invuln boost, primarily because if I remember correctly, the invuln boost was about ready to expire. You know, I bought a bunch of these things in the off season, and with a new daily quest, you know, I got them all staggered and they expire weird times. So every once in a while, I just have to use one, even though I don't think I need it. And you can see here, you know, we just start this fight off perfectly. We get our, you know, little light blue shield up on the back side there. You can see us casting the resistance up. That allows us to block unblockables. You know, if Knull does throw a special one, like I've said before, we don't need to worry about it because we are reverse control immune as well. So it takes a lot of the danger out of this fight. You know, we threw a special 2 here. Typically, we had been doing special 1s. I think the special 2 is really the way to go on this node. You can see, you know, that Knull is just melting, and we're going to go into a striker here to finish the fight off. And well, that was 44 seconds, and that Knull is down. And it's time for some mini action, and we're going to take on leader here on one of my favorite nodes, which is the, you know, the rooted personal space healing, all that kind of fun stuff. What I didn't account for going in here, and once again, this is a tactic defender, and I'm not using a tactic attacker, and that's kind of where I underestimate a lot of these fights. I always do. I have all season long, even as most recent as the war I just did today, which was war number 10. You know, it's just the tactic itself, when you read it, doesn't seem like it's going to be that bad. You know, here I was trying to get distance. It didn't really work. Not the end of the world. You know, we got rooted there. Ideally, he's rooted, not me. You know, it would help out on this node. You know, and you can see here, we're getting close where he's got, you know, the 5 debuffs up. So now he's got 6, one more, he goes unstoppable. You know, it's just kind of a node where you're racing against the clock at the beginning, and now he's unstoppable. Now's where kind of the fun of this fight begins. I notice it, I'm trying to wait it out. You know, we're trying to play cautious while still keeping enough incinerates on to keep the heal block, trying to keep ourselves from being rooted. You know, there's just a lot going on here. So what I'm doing now is just going to parry and then a single medium. You know, you have time for that. You have time to back away. So, you know, you can play around it as long as you can stun them. You know, and that was kind of my thought coming in. I am, like I said, taking more chip damage. It is taking longer than I would like. There, we kind of missed the unstoppable and we let ourselves get smacked in the face. You know, most of these fights against the tactic, I am good for the first 80%. And then if you look at his bar right now underneath of him, there's what, 10, 12 buffs, debuffs up under there, and they move around. It's always hard for me to keep track of in the heat of the moment, but we do finish that fight off. We don't die. We just have to heal up before the next fight. And that next fight is going to be this Onslaught here on the Scared Stiff Power Focus Bubble Shield node. We turn on the Rupture Repulsor again. This is a fight we've taken before. You know, pretty straightforward. We're just going to get up enough debuffs on him so that the Bubble Shield really doesn't come into play. There, we've got 2. We just need 3 more, so we just kind of need him to throw a heavy. And we get rooted. Not the end of the world. You know, we are getting more hits on the Bubble Shield than I like. You know, so I did have to pay a little bit of attention there, but now we've got the tracking on there. Now the Bubble Shield really doesn't come into play. As long as I keep that tracking debuff on him, I can take as many hits in the block as I want. And the nice thing here with the Power Focus 2 is, you know, it's just going to, you know, mean that, you know, hey, he's not going to throw a lot of special 1s, which is fine, and I can keep hitting him because I'm not going to push him to the special 3 very easily. So ideally, I only bait maybe 1 special 2 out of him. I'm trying to here. You can see I tried before, and he didn't want to throw it. Now he finally does. You know, you'll see here in a future war, I had an issue with that as well. But, you know, here, get a couple more ruptures on him just to keep that up. You know, we're doing okay. We took some chip damage. You know, the fight didn't go as smooth as I'd like. I'm getting rooted more often than I like. There, I decide, you know, hey, it's not challenging enough unless you let him hit you in the face a couple more times. Throw our special one. 3, 2, 1. The ruptures do their damage, and we move on. And you can tell we healed up our Ironheart there a little bit off the screen, and we've got this Zola here on node 45, hazard shift, cold snap, bleed, so we can only hit him when he's in cold snap mode. Part of me wanted to try this fight and see if I could out damage the node with Karolina, and that's kind of why you saw me looking at it there and why I left it in there, is I really thought, man, you know, I could try it. She's not immune to either one. Oh, you know, let's go ahead and go with Ironheart. We're going to throw on a combat regen just to heal us up that little bit that we've got there that we didn't. And you know, this is a fight that is just slow. You know, here I'm trying to get a heavy and get some debuffs on him. I forgot about the Conflictor at first. That's kind of the other bad part about this node, is trying to get all my incinerates and stuff on there with Conflictor and then get parries and everything else going on. Just not a whole lot of fun. Now he's in bleed mode, so I really don't want to hit him. There, we tag him once, which is fine. We didn't get a bleed on us. It did trigger the Conflictor, which is nice because now I can get my 5 debuffs on them. Main reason for that is that lets me parry Zola when Conflictor's not up. And you're going to see here, I intentionally, like, I didn't think that parry was going to stick. There, that one stuck. You know, it's just kind of a, once again, so many different things going on there. There, you can see I parried and I was like, is the Conflictor going to trigger? Because the Conflictor debuff had moved to the bottom bar. Now it's back up top. And, oh man, there we trigger Conflictor. Okay, now we can go in. You can see, you know, even my description of it, as I'm trying to talk through it, is hectic and it's chaotic. And I don't like that. You know, there, I almost push him to a special 3 because of Conflictor. Now I'm hoping, okay, just throw your special. I'm also looking, he's got 19 charges. I need to get a clean parry in. There we go, we got a parry. I don't care that he's in bleed mode. We did take one little hit there for the bleed. It doesn't do a lot of damage to us. You know, now we get another. There, I probably should have gone ahead and heavy. I didn't. Probably should have there. There, you can see now, I'm trying to go ahead and get the heavy in. There, I thought, once again, I had a parry. It wasn't there. There, once again, you can see the parry come up. It didn't stick. You know, it's just, you know, I think the next time I take this, and you'll see a fight later on where I fight Zola as a boss, I just say, you know, the heck with the sleep timer. His hits don't hit me for that hard. I'd much rather possibly take a couple hits and reset his charges than screw up in other ways. The longer this fight goes on, the more likelihood of me screwing up and pushing him to a special 3 or something. So I think in the future, you know, if I can't find an opportunity to get a clean parry in there to do the heavy, I'm just gonna eat it. You know, I don't think there's any other way. Here you can see I'm starting to slow it down, starting to just let the incinerates do their work so that we can get out of that fight. Once again, full attack bonus, kind of ugly in the execution, but at the end of the day, we won the fight and we move on. And now, you know, here's another one of those fights that I've taken before, and well, you know, this is very, very similar to times I've taken in the past. We're going to be using Wiccan here. Not my ideal counter for this node, you know, but my goal for this season was to take 9 or 10 fights every war if I could. So a lot of these fights sometimes I'm using with counters. A, I don't really like. B, may not be ideal. So you can see here, everything's starting off fine. You know, we've got the neutralize on there. I'm trying to keep the neutralize up as much as possible and trying to knock him down as much as possible and just trying to keep everything as under control as I could. And then he got the unstoppable. I thought I was far enough away when it triggered. Apparently I wasn't. Not the end of the world. He was throwing a heavy. I was throwing my special. It all kind of, you know, canceled each other out. So we're in good shape there. You know, we do throw a special too. Problem is, and you can see it right now, I don't have the neutralize on there. And I did not do a good job in this war or in this fight of keeping the neutralize on. I noticed it, so I throw it on now. And okay, so we've got the neutralize on there. It's just going to prevent him from getting buffs. The main reason for that is when he does get a buff, you know, he can put a falter on me, like you see the falter on him, you know. So I've got to keep knocking him down more. I'm not, like I said, I didn't do a good job of it. Here, I'm trying to reset and refocus my brain for the last half of this fight. Okay, so we get the special 3 off. Special 3 really doesn't do much. You know, there we're going to do a heavy counter, and that's what I should have done more of throughout this fight, was heavy counters. You can see now I've got the falter debuff on me. I did notice it, so I did back away. There I had another falter, and that's where I get into an issue with not having the neutralize. You can start seeing all the falters start popping up very, very rapidly. You know, you've got to kind of get him knocked down, and then you've got to start playing this game. Okay, he's got the unstoppable, or I've got the unstoppable. He's got the falter, I've got the falter. When you don't keep your neutralize up in this fight, bad things start happening. You can see there I'm approaching falter. I've got the unstoppable, I'm faltered. I don't realize it. I throw my special. You know, fortunately, we get a parry there. You know, we get a combo in. Okay, I've neutralized him again, but, you know, we're close. We're very, very close. We're down to 9%. I just need to get a few more hits in. We're down to 7. I got the falter. Oh no. And I missed it. Fortunately, we got the unstoppable there because he did catch us with that special. There, I got the falter again. I tried to heavy to knock him down to prevent the next one. And, well, he countered. 7% health. Once again, under 10% health on this node. I end up dying. You know, and like I said, I didn't plan on taking any other fights this war. This was going to kind of be it. This was going to be the last one, unless I was needed, you know, possibly for the boss or something like that. Definitely did not really bring anything in for the Bullseye that's next. Someone else was going to do that one for us. So, you know, this was kind of the last fight, so I just threw on a 40. Figured, you know, the last little 7% wasn't going to take much here for Wiccan. And there we go. The big old Deathless Thanos is down, and unfortunately, I drop yet another. And now I said I wasn't going to take this Bullseye, but I end up having to come in and do a little bit of cleanup work. Well, let me rephrase that. I come in and have to do a lot of cleanup work. I'm going to be using Ironheart here. And you can see I did throw in a Power Start 1, just because I wanted to go ahead and get some specials off, so that I have a way of doing a good chunk of damage while I'm waiting for him to throw a special. And, you know, you can safely special counter when he's got the evade up. He's not going to evade the special. So my plan was just let the incinerates and throw as many special ones as possible. The nice thing on this node with the polka dot power is I gain power while just kind of dancing around and dexing, so that lets me get to my special 1. There I do a nice little striker intercept. You can see my wife is telling me let's go because, well, I wasn't supposed to be doing that fight. I do it, we get through it, and we are done there. And like I said, I wasn't supposed to take the boss, but ends up, you know, I boosted for that stupid Bullseye. I had a couple heals here that were left over. I was like, well, you know what? I can probably do this Yelena. I've done her before. You know, it's not that difficult of a fight. It's just a long fight with Ironheart. And you can see here, I'll go and check my buffs. This is important. You know, you can see I'm kind of medium boosted. I'm not boosted as heavy as I typically would for a boss fight. And I throw on the tech, you know, special boost just because of that. And, well, you know, this fight goes well enough. You know, you'll see here that I'm just going to kind of wait out the stun immune. You know, now we can stun her. You know, the whole plan here is just to get her throwing special ones. And then when she goes into her elimination mode, hit into her block, you know, get her back into her other mode and just kind of rinse and repeat. I figure I can get 1, maybe 2 full cycles out. You know, the nice thing with using Ironheart, she does not do a lot of hits if you're just doing medium, light, mediums. so the hit counter doesn't go up too high. Here, you know, we throw a nice little special one. We're doing okay. We're kind of on track for this fight. I've said it when I've done this fight before. This is never going to be a speed race. This is always going to, you know, come down to a minute or less left. And, you know, you just have to make sure you're keeping the incinerates on there, making sure they're doing their little bit of damage to help control the fight. And, you know, we're down under a little bit under a minute, you know, on kind of a little bit behind track here at this point. I'm starting to realize and I'm starting to see it, and it comes down to the difference in the boosts that I use. You know, the added boost from a 30% champion boost, and, you know, maybe the extra 5% from an attack boost does make a difference in this particular matchup. Now, yes, I probably could have played a little bit more aggressively. You know, last time I took this fight, I believe when I got her to elimination mode, about the 3-minute mark, which is where it typically happens, I had her around 55%. So that is kind of where I, you know, would like her. So what I'm thinking here is if I can get her into an elimination mode and I can throw a special 2 into that elimination mode, I may be able to make up that damage. You know, that's kind of my hope. Now what I need to do is a special intercept. We get a nice special intercept, does decent damage. I'm thinking, okay, well, we got her down to 50% now. That's good. That's kind of where we want her at this point in time. Still a little bit behind. You know, we are roughly halfway through the fight, but the problem is, you know, she is in elimination mode here. And you're not really doing any damage. There, I did not want to parry. You can see just even the parries do a big chunk of damage to you, so I don't want to parry, don't want to let her hit into my block. Easier for me to say. Now we're back on track. Now we can hit into her. Now it's time to do some damage, and we know we have to move. There's not going to be, you know, any opportunity to take, you know, real long times, you know, baiting specials, anything like that. If we have to push her to a special 2 at this point in time because she won't throw a special, we've got to do it. We've got to stack incinerates, and we've got to go. And here, there we go. All that dancing around just takes time away. You know, I'm watching the clock. I'm watching her health. I'm still thinking, you know what? We're okay. Then I get hit. We're still okay. We're not dead. But what that ended up doing was really slowing the fight down. You know, there. And then this pushes me to a special 2, which really doesn't do much. Does a little bit. Needed that to be a special 1 to pause the incinerates that are dropping off. Oh man, that getting hit and losing that little bit of concentration in this fight probably is going to end up being the difference. And you can see here now we're back on track. We're trying to get more hits in. We realize there's a minute left, and well, she's getting close to elimination mode again. She's still got 25% health. I'm thinking to myself, there's no way I can pull this off. I'm trying to figure out right now what path I have in the next 50 seconds to do 23% damage when she's going to enter elimination mode after my next special, or after her next special. So here, I'm thinking, okay, maybe if I do a special intercept, you know, maybe we can do some good damage with it. Maybe it'll help out. You know, dust does not do very much. I don't have very many incinerates on. And at 30 seconds left, I'm like, well, man, there's 86 hits I've got to get off of her by hitting into her block. There's just no way. I'm doing everything I can to do damage, to just try and, you know, hold on to some hope that, you know, we can do something. There she gets out of observation mode, and, you know, I know it's over. There's just no way, and I'm just going to take it. You know, there just was no way to finish that fight off with a little bit of time I had left. So, yeah, if you do that fight with Ironheart, you either have to be a little bit more aggressive than I was there if you're not fully boosting, or you fully boost and you take it and you have about a minute left. So here, I'm just going to go ahead and try and finish this fight off with Karolina, who is a decent counter for Yelena. I don't know what I was doing there. I wasn't thinking at all. You know, just kind of bad play here at the end. I was a little frustrated that I timed out. You know, now I just need to bait a special. And then I'm going to go in for a counter, throw my special, and then we're going to let the Incinerates do their business while I try and search out the sun. Get me into the sun. There we go. We are now in the sun. She's down to 3%. I'm going to bait a little special out here. 2%. Couple hits here. Finish it off with a special 2. And we are through and done with this war. Well, that's 10 fights this war. Not the cleanest 10 fights, but that's 10 fights during this war. And that's going to bring our record on the season through 7 wars to 62 kills. And we're at 7 deaths. So averaging about 1 death per war, which I'll take, taking that many fights sometimes with not the ideal counters. I do want to thank you very much for watching this video. If you did like it, please hit the like button, subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. I always love to hear from you. And until the next one, I hope you all have a great day and take care all.